Hey, you guys, on today's show, if the name Tina Peters does not ring a bell with you, it should, and her case will make your blood boil. So, we're going to talk about her, and then we're going to discuss the Supreme Court decision that basically took a little plank out of the Democrats' cheating machine. So, stick around for that today on The Angela Box Show.
Hello, my name is Angela Box. Show your fucking money.
Okay, you guys, the Tina Peters case. If you're watching this, you no doubt know who Tina Peters is. But for those of you who are like, why do I know that name? Let me give you the 30-second summary. Tina Peters is a woman who I believe is in her 70s now, who was the county clerk in a county called Mesa County in Colorado. Now, Mesa County had been a reliably red county. She was a Republican. It was an elected position. It was a red county. But weirdly enough, just in the 2020 election, it went to Democrat. So as part of her duties, she thought something was sus, obviously. But as part of her duties, she was supposed to maintain the record of the election and the voting logs for 18 months, okay? So she gets wind that Dominion and the Secretary of State, who I believe it's Jocelyn Benson, don't hold me to it, but the piece of shit Democrat Secretary of State in Colorado, and a representative from either Dominion or Smartmatic, one of them, okay? She gets wind that these fraudsters are getting ready to come in and wipe the entire election system clean, which again is illegal to do, and you're supposed to keep it for 18 months. So knowing that, she made a copy of this record and she gave it to the sheriff of Mesa County. Well, then the sheriff of Mesa County basically told on them and the media got wind of it. Now, what do you think happened to Tina Peters? Was Tina Peters held up as a hero for trying to preserve election integrity? Was she held up as a hero to push back against multi-billion-dollar corruption in the form of election systems? No, of course not. No, she was arrested. She was arrested, and she was basically charged with election denialism. Essentially, okay? So they basically said that you gave information to law enforcement that you were not able to give by law or something crazy, okay? Like the most convoluted, ridiculous thing you've ever heard. Now, after her trial, which again, the woman was simply going forward with evidence of fraud, okay? After her trial, of course, she was found guilty and thrown in jail by a filthy leftist judge for 9 years, okay? Again, this woman is in her 70s or late 60s, early 70s, something like that. Like, it's an insane thing to do. But what it did, of course, was to chill speech on discussing the 2020 election, especially if you're an elected official and you saw something fishy. Well, you saw what happened to Tina, right? You don't want that to happen to you. You better shut up. Anyway, so she's been appealing this case, and President Trump has spoken out about it, and he has said this is the most egregious, outrageous thing, but he can't do anything about it because it's not a federal case. And the asshole Democrat governor in Colorado, Jared Polis, is sure as hell not going to do anything to look into this. So she's having to go up to the appeals court. And the appeals court this week were incredulous when they were listening to the case that the state provided. Basically, the state convicted her, right, on a misdemeanor. And the appeals court was like, okay, hang on a minute. You convicted her on a misdemeanor, but yet you got rid of the jury or whatever, or something like it was something. I'll play the clip for you. But essentially, she was sentenced on a felony charge. Okay, so it was a blatant disregard of her First Amendment rights, which the judges point out. She was sentenced to something that wasn't even in the charging documents. Like, how is this legal? Roll the clip.
Is it your position that a person can still be convicted of a crime with which they were never charged and with which the jury was never instructed, as long as the evidence is sufficient?
Yes, I think that is what the case law indicates, that if it's just in this case, I'll just point out too that, I don't have the language of the statutes that you're citing in your hypothetical, but it was one word, might, and it was already,
but that one word distinguishes it from a felony to a misdemeanor.
And in this case made an extra sentence, 15 more months in the Department of Corrections that couldn't have been given had it been a misdemeanor conviction. It clearly affects a substantial right.
And I'll just say, I'm confused as to why the people are continuing to maintain that the proper remedy on this isn't to enter the conviction for the misdemeanor, because the indictment used the word might, and the jury was instructed on that, so that's what the verdict is. I am baffled as to the position that's being taken that we can somehow overlook that and still enter the felony because the evidence that was presented at trial would have supported the felony. Are you still maintaining that position in front of us here today?
Yes, that is our position.
What case law supports that argument?
I'm sorry?
What case law supports that argument?
I've cited it in my brief. I don't have it right in front of me, but the case...
It's the omitted elements
Yes,
case
correct.
law, right? Mm-hmm. But that's just where the element was omitted, and but the element that was omitted wasn't in dispute. Here, the jury was affirmatively misinstructed. It was instructed on the misdemeanor, and it found her guilty of that misdemeanor beyond a reasonable doubt. This isn't the omission of an element. This is a misinstructed jury. How can we correct that by saying, no, we'll just assume that because she could have also been convicted of the felony, we enter that even though we don't have a jury verdict? That's a...
I understand it's a difficult position
Okay.
for the people to be in. But
It's not a position you have to take.
But thank you. But I do believe that the omitted element language applies because, to me, I understand. I can hear from the way you're talking about it that it seems more egregious to add this extra word than it is to omit an element. But to me, omitting an element is a pretty big deal, and the fact that can be
Except in those cases, at least the person was originally charged with the elemental language. Here, never on the table.
That is true, but if I can just add, and again, it seems that I will not be able to convince you, but I just want to put my argument out there, which is that there wasn't a confusion from the parties about what they were talking about, because the correct statutory citation was used, so they were on notice of the statutory citation. The language was incorrect, but the statutory citation was correct.
Couldn't that also mean that the prosecution was on notice that they'd only charged, since the language was correct, they'd only charged that language and not... both of them were on notice of something wrong.
Oh, yes. I guess what I'm saying, Your Honor, is just that there wasn't a notice problem because there was the statutory citation. And the parties treated it as though... I think it was an oversight. I think everybody believed that if they had charged and used the language for that's what the record bears out, in my estimation.
So hopefully Tina Peters is going to have some justice for herself. And then I hope she sues the ever-living hell out of every single corrupt Colorado politician, and sue Dominion and or Smartmatic too, because they had a hand in this. Just my opinion, allegedly. Don't come for me to sue me for $1 billion. Voldemort machines, okay? You're getting discovered, all right? It ain't just going to be one or two people that you can sue into oblivion and try to destroy their lives and throw them in jail to shut them down. Guess what? The truth always comes out. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, you guys, you know about my friends at New Frontier Creative. You know about Becky and Kevin Blaylock, and they're not only the people I work with that create my content, that have updated my website. Created my website, created my logos, all of it. Can run interference for me if I want them to on social media, can do everything. Not only are they great creative people and artists and unbelievably talented at what they do, but I also consider them friends. And that is why I so highly recommend New Frontier Creative. If you are looking to upgrade your business cachet, you need to have things that look good. Your logo needs to look fire. You need to have social media, all that good stuff. You need to have great production value on things, and the Blaylocks can help you with all of this. So just go to newfrontiercreative.com. And when you use my name, Angela Box, you're going to get 15% off your whole order. So just bundle everything together. Do it all at once. One fell swoop. Boom, done. And you're going to be working with patriots that don't hate you and that do impeccable work. newfrontiercreative.com. Check them out. Let's get to the Supreme Court thing, because this is a very interesting case. And it's another one of those, why did this have to go to court case, okay? Basically, here's what happened. The Supreme Court last week, and this was very quiet, you guys. It was very quiet. You didn't hear a lot of discussion about it. Gosh, I wonder why. And before we get into the case, let's take a look at the states that Kamala Harris won and their voter ID requirements as the worthless and feckless GOP sits on their asses and don't pass the SAVE Act, which would require photo ID for all elections. Riddle me why they don't want to do that. I mean, at least the Democrats, we know who our enemy is, right? Then we've got these Republicans, these Lisa Murkowskis, these Susan Collins, and more frequently, these Rand Pauls that continue to take a dump on their constituents and stab us all in the back. At least with the Democrats, we know what we're dealing with. But with you assholes, you're always doing the most. And it's not just them. It's people like Tom Tillis. Don't even get me started. Anyway, they won't pass the SAVE Act, even though it's the most common sense thing in the world. Let's take a look at this map here. And as you can see on the screen, here's the map of the states that Kamala Harris won. The only state that ID is required, well, I can't tell what the state is because I'm terrible at geography, but there's only 2 that require photo ID. The others don't require any ID at all, or there's an ID without a photo attached. I wonder why these things keep happening. But anyway, let's get to the Supreme Court thing. So the Supreme Court ruled on Wednesday that federal candidates have the right to challenge state election laws that govern the counting of ballots in their states, clearing the way for an expected flurry of new lawsuits in the run-up to this year's midterms. Justices ruled 7-2. Woo, y'all, 7-2. You could knock me over with a feather. That means that John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett and Brett Kavanaugh all threw in on this, okay? They ruled 7-2 that candidates running for federal office have the standing to sue state election boards over their counting of ballots, including challenging laws that allow for the counting of late arriving mail-in ballots. Because, y'all, this is what they use. This is what they do. We all know why they use mail-in ballots. We all know, okay? And their reasoning is like, you know, those mail-in ballots, we need to be able to count them for like 14 days after the election, because we need to basically find out how much we need to cheat by, okay? We need to have time enough to manufacture said ballots, 98% of them that go for Joe Biden or whomever. Like, we need time. We need that 14 days to really like ramp up the creation of these ballots and make sure that they have time to get to you guys. Wink, wink. And the justices are like, no. They need to be received by 6 p.m. on election night, period, dot, the end, or whatever, midnight on election morning, whatever, the next day, whatever. So no, you're not going to get to count them for 14 days afterwards. And also, candidates who have stake in the election outcomes, like a Carrie Lake did, which they absolutely screwed her over twice, once for governor and once for Senate. Candidates absolutely have standing to challenge the blatant fraud going on in their states. Well, it's something, ladies and gentlemen. We may not have the GOP with enough balls or love for the country and their constituents to pass the SAVE Act, but at least sometimes the Supreme Court comes in clutch and does their work for them. And this is going to be delicious to watch the Democrats, once again, try to defend the indefensible. Try and explain to us, tell me like I'm 5, explain to me why you need mail-in ballots to be counted 14 days after an election if it's not for fraud. We'll wait. They can't. All right. this is where I'm going to leave today's video. Please let me know what you think down below. Like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. And remember to keep kicking ass and taking names. And thy will be done.